I have presided over thousands of hearings during my years on the bench, and most of them follow a predictable rhythm. People walk in nervous, lawyers shuffle papers, someone apologizes for a mistake, and eventually the law does what the law is designed to do. But every once in a while, a case arrives that reminds you exactly why justice exists in the first place. The morning that 24-year-old Alexandra Whitmore walked into my courtroom was one of those mornings. Before she even said a word, I could feel the energy shift in the room. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened late, a full 20 minutes after the hearing was supposed to begin. That alone was unusual. In court, punctuality is not a suggestion, it is a rule. Everyone else had already arrived. The attorneys, the bailiffs, the court clerk, the reporters who had caught wind of the Whitmore name, and the quiet woman sitting in the third row whose minivan had been struck. Then Alexandra Whitmore entered. She didn't hurry, she didn't look embarrassed. She strolled. Her heels echoed across the polished courthouse floor in slow, deliberate clicks, each step announcing her arrival like she was walking into a fashion show instead of a legal proceeding. She wore a cream-colored silk dress that looked custom-tailored, the kind of garment that probably cost more than a used car. A designer purse hung from her shoulder. Her sunglasses stayed on even inside the courtroom lights. Her attorney, a sharply dressed partner from one of the city's most expensive law firms, rushed in ahead of her and immediately began apologizing. "Your Honor, we sincerely apologize for the delay." He looked genuinely nervous. His client did not. She moved with the relaxed confidence of someone who had spent her entire life assuming that rules bent in her direction. And the moment she reached the defense table, she casually slid into the chair like she had just arrived at brunch. That was the first sign that this hearing was going to be different. I studied the file in front of me. On paper, the case itself was straightforward. Alexandra Whitmore was charged with reckless driving, leaving the scene of an accident, and obstruction of justice. Traffic camera footage showed her BMW rear-ending a minivan at a red light. The impact had been strong enough to total the vehicle. Instead of stopping to exchange information, she had reportedly laughed, made a dismissive comment about the condition of the other car, and then driven around the damaged vehicle and fled the scene. It was all captured on camera, open and shut. But what made the case interesting was not the evidence. It was the name, Whitmore. Her father, Richard Whitmore, was the CEO of Whitmore Technologies, a company that had grown into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Their family foundation donated millions to hospitals and universities. Buildings downtown carried their name. In some cities, that kind of influence quietly shapes outcomes, but not in my courtroom. I looked up from the file. "Miss Whitmore," I said calmly, "thank you for joining us. I trust there was a good reason for your tardiness." She slowly removed her sunglasses and folded them. "Traffic," she said. That was it. No apology, no respect in the tone, just a casual answer like she was explaining why she was late for lunch. Her attorney jumped in quickly. "Your Honor, again, we sincerely apologize." I nodded once toward him. Then I looked directly at Alexandra. "Ms. Whitmore, when you are scheduled to appear in this courtroom at 9 o'clock, you arrive at 9 o'clock, not when it becomes convenient for you." She shrugged. Actually, shrugged. "Sure," she said. Behind her, I could hear murmurs from the gallery. Courtrooms have a way of attracting regular observers. Some are law students, some are reporters, some are simply citizens who believe justice should be visible. That morning, the gallery was fuller than usual, and in the third row sat Maria Chen. She wore hospital scrubs. Her hair was tied back hastily the way someone looks after finishing a long overnight shift. Maria Chen was a hospice nurse. She spent her nights caring for people who were dying. That morning, she had come straight from the hospital to watch the woman who had crashed into her car treat the legal system like a mild inconvenience. I returned my attention to the defendant. "Ms. Whitmore, please put your phone away." She looked up, surprised. "I'm just checking something." Nothing is more important than these proceedings. She sighed dramatically, but dropped the phone into her purse. Her attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor, if we could proceed quickly, my client has another commitment later today." Another commitment? As if this were a dentist appointment. I leaned forward slightly. "Counselor, your client is facing criminal charges. She will remain here until this hearing concludes." Alexandra whispered something to him. He shook his head quickly, but she ignored him and spoke anyway. "With all due respect, Your Honor, this whole situation is being blown way out of proportion. It was just a fender bender." The room went quiet. Just a fender bender. Maria Chen's minivan had been totaled. Her 2 children were in the back seat. But to Alexandra Whitmore, it was just a fender bender. I turned the monitor toward the courtroom. "Let's review the footage." The video played. Clear traffic camera footage showed Alexandra's BMW rolling forward from a stop and slamming into the minivan ahead of her. The impact jolted the smaller vehicle. Maria Chen stepped out of her driver's seat, visibly shaken, immediately checking on the 2 children inside. Then Alexandra exited her car. She looked at the damage. She said something. The audio was faint, but the words were still recognizable. "Whatever, that car's a piece of junk anyway." Then she got back into the BMW, steered around the damaged minivan, ran the red light, and drove away. The video ended. Silence filled the room. I looked at Alexandra. Her expression had barely changed. "Ms. Whitmore," I said, "do you remember saying that?" She shrugged again. "I was stressed." "You referred to her car as a piece of junk." "Well, it kind of was." The gallery gasped. Her attorney dropped his head into his hands, and in that moment I realized something important. This wasn't just arrogance. This was someone who had never been told no. I stood up. That gesture alone quieted the entire courtroom. "Ms. Whitmore," I said slowly, "I want to make sure I understand your position." She shifted uncomfortably. "You struck another vehicle, there were children inside, you left the scene, and now you are dismissing the incident because you believe the other car was beneath you." "I didn't say beneath me." "You implied it." She crossed her arms. "My car is nicer, obviously." The logic was astonishing. Her attorney tried to interrupt again. "Your Honor, may I speak with my client?" "Sit down, counselor." I looked back at Alexandra. "Tell me what happened that morning." She sighed. "I was late for a meeting." "And that justified leaving the scene of an accident?" "It was an accident. People are acting like I committed a crime." "You did." She froze. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on her face. We continued discussing the events. Her answers only grew worse. She admitted that she had driven to her country club afterward. She had lunch. She played 9 holes of golf. She did not contact her insurance company until 3 days later. Maria Chen had eventually tracked her down using the license plate recorded on the traffic camera. And then Alexandra said the sentence that changed everything. "My dad's lawyer told me this would probably get dismissed." There it was, the belief that money erased consequences. I leaned forward slightly. "I do not care who your father is." Her expression hardened. "But he said, 'I am not your father's lawyer. I am the judge.'" The room was completely silent now. "You are not special here. You are simply another defendant who broke the law." I opened the folder containing Maria Chen's victim impact statement. "Before I deliver sentencing, I want you to hear this." I began reading. The statement described the crash, the children screaming, the fear that followed, the sleepless nights, the financial stress, the moment when Maria walked toward Alexandra's car expecting help and instead watched the vehicle drive away. When I finished reading, I looked directly at the defendant. "That is the reality of your actions." Alexandra was no longer smiling. Her hands trembled. But the lesson was only beginning. "Alexandra Whitmore," I said, "this court finds you guilty of leaving the scene of an accident causing injury and property damage." The courtroom leaned forward. "You will serve 60 days in county jail." Her face went white. "You will lose your driver's license for 1 year." You will complete 200 hours of community service at County General Hospital, the same hospital where Maria Chen worked. You will also pay full restitution for all damages, medical expenses, and therapy costs for the children involved. She started crying, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who had just discovered that privilege has limits. I picked up the gavel. Court is adjourned. The sound echoed through the room, and for the first time in her life, Alexandra Whitmore learned that money cannot silence justice.